Hey guys, just as a heads up, obviously we are going to be doing some heavy spoilers in this episode. It doesn't hit for, at least about 10 minutes, but it does happen, so keep your ears open. Oh, you've made the wrong choice there, mate.
What accent was that?
I have no idea. It was probably mostly Ringo.
Oh, good job.
Oh, thanks. So yeah, all that aside, welcome to the very first episode of Off the Air's bonus content. You can get more of these things on Patreon someday, hopefully, eventually, but the important thing is we are here now to talk about the great Choose Your Own Adventure video that swept the nation right around Christmas time, the far superior Netflix movie to come out around Bird Box, Bandersnatch.
Yeah, Bandersnatch.
I guess I should say, hi, I'm Noah, and I'm here today with Nina.
Hi, I'm here today because I actually didn't even know if I wanted to watch it at first, because I have this thing where when new things come out, I get really stressed because everyone's always talking about it. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to like it as much, or I'm going to like it more than people are saying. And I'm going to be the odd one out here, and it's going to be weird, and I'm going to be really uncomfortable. So I waited until you said it was good to go and watch it.
See, I don't mind being the odd one out. Speaking of Bird Box, all my friends loved Bird Box. Apparently, everyone freaking adored the movie. I watched it and I hated it so much.
Yeah,
and I am apparently in the minority in that. I don't know why.
Really? I've seen a lot of YouTubers that I trust kind of go off and say they didn't like it all that much, which is why I didn't watch it. It seems like one of those things with a cool premise that like completely fails to to actually execute it well.
See, and I think that would be a great example of what did end up happening. It was kind of like The Happening, in the sense that it was a cool premise that was not executed well. But you know what? Bandersnatch, on the other hand, had a cool premise that I would argue was executed about as well as they could have.
Yeah, like honestly, that's where I'm at too, because I didn't expect it to be mostly straight meta commentary on like the format that it was in, right? Like I was like, oh, Black Mirror. I wonder what premise they're like, what they're going to do with it. But then the whole thing was like choose your own adventure inside a choose your own adventure kind of thing, which was really cool and very Black Mirror. So I don't know what I expected, but that was really cool, and it did do really well with its premise, because again, it's hard to do choose your own adventures, man. It just is.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, my mom had maybe 3 or 4 choose your own adventure books that we just kind of had around the house for whatever reason. And I remember them being very tedious as a general rule, because all I wanted to do was unlock. I wanted to get to the right ending, but that involved so much like fingers holding pages, bookmarks, to try and find out where was the right spot to go, that I ended up half the time flipping toward the end and finding an ending and then trying to get to that
going
ending.
Back. Yeah.
Which I do recommend trying out at least once, because it's a fun time trying to attain an ending that you already know exists.
Oh yeah. What was I gonna say? I totally lost it. Well, I think that's like one thing they got wrong, is that like Stefan doesn't have like a bunch of little tabs in his choose your own adventure book showing where each ending is, because that's what I did. I remember I had a few, and I always wanted to. I always got really like unnaturally angry when I hit an ending that like just killed me. I was like, okay, that's not fair. And I would have to like flip back. It was so frustrating. But that's like one thing that I think Netflix did really well, is like directing you back to where you messed up so that you could try again really easily.
Now, there were some times I felt like they took me back too far. But there were also sometimes I felt like they didn't take me back nearly far enough.
Oh, yeah. I can agree with that.
I'm trying to think of a couple of different spots off the top of my head, but one of them... Well, you know what? No, I'll hold off on that, because, spoiler alert to everyone listening, we both have this handy little flow chart in front of us.
Hell yeah. That
we managed to find, and it mostly has everything.
Yes.
Everything important, except for the one apparently secret ending that, in... typical choose your own adventure fashion, it doesn't actually have a path that leads to it. They realized it was not in flowing storyline with everything else. So what they ended up doing was they have patched the ending out, but it is still sitting in there. So that's weird. But
Sometimes it's like that. Yeah. There was a lot in there that seemed to have a lot of meaning that like never really, but Black Mirror does this in general, where they have a lot of little Easter eggs and whatever, and none of them really like come to fruition by the end of the episode. And you kind of wonder if they're gonna like come into play in the next season of Black Mirror, or like what specifically with the amount of lions there were in this episode.
I was just thinking a great example is that the actual glyph used like very liberally throughout the entire episode is the white bear logo from the episode White Bear.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, amazing episode. That was the one that really cemented my love for this series.
That was the one that made my roommate stand up and walk out of the room.
No, yeah, that's fair. It's a heavy episode.
It is. It's harsh. And the thing I love about Black Mirror is how it sparks conversations like this, and like the one that I had with my roommate after White Bear, and whether or not that whole situation was justified, or if that was going overboard, if it was cruel and unusual, like
well, I think we can agree it's a little unusual, and it's pretty cruel.
Yeah. Well, it's unusual to us, but like, what about in their universe? Like, has it just so normalized at that point that it's not like people know that could be a consequence for their actions? Mm-hmm. It's just something to think about, which is what Black Mirror is.
Exactly.
It's a big part of why I love it so much.
Yeah, Black Mirror, it pretty much sits there to make you think, yeah, but what if we don't think about our actions and we just kind of keep rolling?
Yeah. And like, I feel like a lot of people compare it to the Twilight Zone, which I think is an apt like comparison for sure.
Mm-hmm. That's my favorite comparison to draw for sure. It's It's an easy way to get the idea out there without, well, no, a lot of people heavily disagree with it because they're like, oh, it's too crazy. It's too out there. It's like, I don't know, man.
I don't know about that.
Pretty in line to me.
Yeah, it seems like exactly kind of the same premise of like an anthology of stories that make you think like, what if society worked just a little differently or a lot differently, and it makes us examine where we're at and where we're headed. Like it's an apt comparison for that anyway, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I think Bandersnatch added to that as well, in a lot of different ways, because it depending on which ending you got, it had a different overall message that it was like going for.
Yeah.
Because you could either have like the illusion of choice thing or the program and control thing are two very different like points to be made.
Mm-hmm. I was blown away when I got the program and control ending that first time.
Yeah. Did you get that the first time?
That was the first ending, like hard ending that I got to.
Yeah. Oh, that must have been whack, because I my first ending was the bury him ending, where he ends up in prison because of the dog, which made a really nice full circle because I had like been wondering when the dog was going to come into play again. So that was fun.
Mm-hmm. The first time I killed Dad, I chopped him up.
Of course he did.
So I got the perfect game ending.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I wouldn't bury him because the dog was digging outside, and I really feel like that's where they would have me bury him. So I tried it again later, and lo and behold,
Sure enough, there it is.
That's where you bury him.
Yep. Yeah, no, I saw it, like you said, because the dog thing is like so heavily telegraphed. It was like, yeah, no, this dog is definitely going to ruin my life if I bury him. But I was like, I really don't want to chop him up. Like, that's so gross. Poor Stefan. He doesn't deserve this. I had so many feelings for Stefan.
I feel like you and I got very different impressions on characters then too, since the program and control ending, that was my first ending. That kind of tainted my opinion of the dad real heavily.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it to you.
I've been reading through some threads on the Black Mirror subreddit about Bandersnatch, and there's so many people that were like, oh yeah, I just didn't want to have the dad's blood on my hands. He was such a nice guy. And I'm sitting there like, see, I didn't get that vibe at all. I thought he was a weird little dude that
That's a really interesting point that I hadn't considered, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, depending on which ending that you got first, it really would change your opinion of like how you saw the characters in there. Like,
yeah, because my first impression of the dad was, oh man, he's a sad guy trying to deal with his son who clearly just has some emotional trauma that he has not been dealing with. And
Yeah.
then he's just tired. And then I got the program and control ending, and the whole thing switched from dad is just tired to dad has been running this experiment for, how old is Stefan supposed to be? Like
20 something,
20
30.
something? Yeah, so he's been running this experiment for 20 something years.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why he's tired. He's just been doing the same thing for so long, you know?
That's really interesting, because that, like, because I got the ending with killing dad first, and I refused to kill him the first time through, and it made me loop back and choose again, right?
The infinite loop of you gotta kill dad.
You have to kill dad. And I was like, I really don't want to. I just wanted to end here. But if I end it here, then I don't get a rating on the game, which is what I wanted. So the thing was, after that, when I went back and got the program and control ending, it felt so contrived, because I was like, oh, it's like a completely different timeline from when I killed dad, right? Like, it's almost like that choice. So it felt really like out of place and weird. Like, these aren't the same worlds, because how can the same password unlock completely different compartments, or how can the same compartment open to completely different things based on the password? Which brought me back to what Colin was saying, right? So for that, it made me feel like, I think that tainted the whole program and control ending for me, because it felt like more out there. It felt really out there, and it didn't feel like it was meant to be like the quote unquote true ending or whatever. But that was just my experience, because that was like one of the last ones I got.
So here would be my question for you. What do you think is the good ending? Because I got one, and I don't think we talked about it yet, because I feel like when I tried to, like, you know, talk to you about it just over text and Discord, we were both pretty fresh on the end, and I didn't want to spoil anything by accident.
Yep. Which I appreciate.
Yeah, no problem. This is worth noting. I'll toss a spoiler at the beginning of this, but I mean, it's been out for... at this point, like several weeks. You probably saw it if you cared about it.
Yep.
And
if you didn't, why'd you come and watch this podcast, honestly?
Exactly. This is very worth watching the first time. I can't stress that enough. Watching it and getting your own first impression is so important.
Going in blind is really, really important. As far as, I think it's kind of, Jackson's going to hate me for doing this, but I'm going to go ahead and bring up Undertale. Because I feel like it's that same thing where you can say that, like, a few of the endings you could pick as the true ending, like the program and control, or the 5-star, or the prison ending. All three of those feel like they could be really important endings to the story, like really succinct and good spots for them to end, you know, satisfying each in their own way. But they all kind of build on each other to make the story whole in of itself. Like, obviously the 5-star ending is the one that the story builds up to most naturally, in my opinion. Because
by
it
5-star
has,
ending, do you mean the 5-star ending where
it has the most elements of the story work into it? It has the whole continuation of the Bandersnatch book to the Bandersnatch 80s game to what we're playing right now, and it has that whole "ooh, you're inside the story" element. Thing to it. So I feel like that's the one that they put the most effort into making it look like it was the true ending. But I think you're really meant to play through and get the whole story by getting all the endings. So given the way that they set it up so that it loops you back naturally,
which heavily
and
plays
makes
into
and encourages you to keep going. But that's that's what I got out of it.
No, that seems really accurate too, because that plays really heavily into Colin's multiverse rhetoric, because he's like, you know, every story exists simultaneously. That whole thing. And the vibe I got from that was the only way that you would, like, I mean, obviously he's saying you need to open your mind and, like, live life that way, but, you know.
Yeah, no, it was definitely everything that Colin said, like, clearly had a double meaning, which was, let me just say, the first time I played it through and I accepted the job offer and it sent me back to the beginning.
Of course you had to.
Yeah, like it wouldn't make sense not to. It sent you back to the beginning, and it played through again, and like Colin knew what was going on. Another comparison to Undertale time. It's a really cool thing that a lot of stuff does, where it uses its medium to kind of build this meta narrative. And when I saw that it was going to do that, I got really excited. I was like, oh, here we go. Colin's going to be Sans Undertale of Bandersnatch, and. Colin was my favorite character.
Colin was such a good character, and I'm very angry that people on Twitter bullied him about this thing so much that he actually took a step back from social media.
Oh no, really? I didn't see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he released a statement right around New Year's talking about how the positive response has been overwhelming and you can't dwell on the negative, but he has come to the decision that it's time to like take a little bit of a step back, focus a little more inwardly and a little less on social media type of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Made me incredibly angry because his character was amazing in this. It made me so happy. He just, everything he did, actually, it made me really mad because everything he did reminded me of, what's his name from the IT crowd? Moss.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. No,
just, his accent was the same. And then obviously he's in another tech position. So like my brain kept being like, no, can't think that. Can't think that.
No, keep it within the story, dude. No, I loved him. I loved the kind of position he fills as Stefan's like mentor, both in like the gaming industry and in this world where his choices aren't necessarily like real. Because he's right about a lot of things, but he's also very, very wrong about a lot of things as well. And I love just that he just disappears, even if you go back to before he jumped. It's like, that's just so eerie. That was like one of my favorite elements, was that he was just gone from the story. Like we accidentally completely wiped him out from the code with our decisions.
And that's another thing I heard people complaining about too, is that sometimes he would just disappear, but then, you know, different choices you make that reset your internal timeline sometimes would bring him back.
Yeah, I didn't. That never happened to me.
So that did happen to me because I had Kitty show up and be like, "Where's my husband? Yada yada yada. Haven't seen him in ages." And Tucker's just like, "Oh, you know, he's out banging whores in Amsterdam." Blah 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 blah. Move on. I had an ending reset and Colin was back.
Whack.
And I think one of the things I was reading, and I'm kind of heavily agreeing with this, the message they're trying to send there is that, yeah, Colin was like dead in that timeline, but every time you reset, your branch splits, but maybe you're not on the same branch that you started on.
Ooh.
Maybe you're just on a new branch at a similar choice point, which is why Colin is back.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Like, honestly, it's there. The thing about this episode in particular, I know it's supposed to be a quote unquote film, but it's an episode.
Oh yeah,
for sure. For me is like everything, most of the criticisms they address within the story, like most of the criticisms that can be levied towards it in general, like, oh, there aren't enough endings. Well, you know, Stefan has that whole rant he goes on about the illusion of choice in the 5-star ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I tightened it down to just a few endings. Like, he brings that up. And if you bring up like, oh, Colin's dead and then he's back. Well, Colin himself says that life is weird like that, you know, like they address all of that stuff within the narrative. So that's why a lot of the criticisms to me are like, man, you're taking this a little bit too seriously, honestly. Like, sit back and take it for what it is.
Right. Yeah. I didn't realize how streamlined some of these choices were until I pulled up a worse flow chart than the one I have here, because this flow chart makes me think, oh yeah, this is exactly about as complicated as I thought it was.
Yeah.
But I found another one. I'll see if I can find it again, because it was bad.
Yeah, I found a bunch on after my last playthrough of it. I was like, okay, I don't care if there are more endings. I'm tired. I'm just gonna go find a flowchart, and I found like 3 of varying levels of complicatedness. And none of them were as good as the one you sent me. So there's that.
Here's one.
Here we go.
This is the one I found that I just straight up despised, because it is incomplete. The person does say it's incomplete, but it hammers down the path so hard right in the beginning when there are other options.
Oh, yeah.
But it locks you into this path of, okay, here's how you get to the real endings, which I feel like it's just a misleading flowchart. I don't think it's
It is
bad per se. It is just incredibly misleading.
I agree. Well, one of the things that like a lot of people were kind of saying, like the one podcast that you linked, the Dead Meat podcast, they talked about you know, how they knew from the beginning what kind of game it would be because the first couple choices didn't really matter, quote unquote, like the cereal and the music.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I chose differently when I started from the very, very beginning, like after I finished everything, because I just wanted to see like what would happen if you refused a job offer from the very beginning and Colin didn't have his little I read Bandersnatch moment.
Mm-hmm.
But listening to the different music, it's like in real life, man. Like sometimes you make choices like that just affect you right then in the moment.
Yeah.
Like the music that you listened to kind of affected the tone and the feeling of like when you were walking into the business building and when he was like looking up at the offices. Like it was just a little different, but it affected my experience and how I was feeling in that moment, which is just like real life. Like sometimes the choice you make isn't going to be a butterfly effect choice. It is just going to affect that moment, but it's still a choice.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember the name of the song right now that I picked. In
the first choice,
yeah,
the flowchart says it.
I know.
I think.
Oh shoot, yeah,
I
you're
picked
right.
the Thompson Twins the first time, and I honestly liked it better. Like I love Eurythmics, but I liked it better than.
I'm trying to, the Eurythmics song. I picked the Eurythmics one because I just now too clicked on it.
I didn't realize that. Like, also it being set in the 80s is kind of fun.
Oh yeah,
because it was, and I feel like another part of that was like setting the atmosphere and the tone and showing you what music there was available for you to pick from.
Yeah, I'm having trouble finding the songs I was thinking of right now, but there was one specifically as you were walking into the record store to pick like one of the albums, and the whole song just had this very heavy feeling of someone else making choices for you.
Yeah.
Which was a reoccurring theme that I greatly enjoyed.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize it until, that song I noticed, but I didn't realize other songs also had very similar themes until...
the song when he's in the car with his dad. Yeah, the song where he's in the car with his dad is where I noticed it, because I was like, this is the entire thing. And then, because I liked Stefan so much, when he started realizing that he was being controlled, it was amazing. I wanted less and less to make the choices for him. Did you ever let it run through just on its own?
I did, because one of the groups I'm in on Facebook was talking about it, and they mentioned that their favorite playthrough that they did was they didn't take a single choice, and it just rode through.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if maybe that was the unspoken third option. You know, like, you can turn left or right, and the third option is, or I could just turn around. I was really hoping maybe it was just like the third option.
Me too. I was really hoping that he would like pick. That would have been okay. That is the first and maybe the only missed opportunity that I will wholly criticize. Is there should have been some way to let him run his own course and just see how that would have. I feel like that is a big enough diversion from the choices we were making and something that would have been easy enough to do without it affecting everything else, that it should have been an option to just let it run through and not control him. You know, I feel like
I would have loved that so much,
honestly, like, because I started to feel really, really bad, because they did a really good job of making Stefan like paranoid, but not in a way that, like, just with the way that they built it up with Colin and the way that he sort of started to discover, and that revelation that he could feel you making the choices for him was really well executed.
I love that so much. Now, if you did go down the meta path, I believe we both talked about how it was it was a little
Yeah, I don't, like we said, I don't like meta endings in general. Usually it takes me a little bit to get used to them. I felt really cheated with Monty Python and the Holy Grail when I was 14, because I was like, I want to see how the story is actually gonna end. And I think that the difference between that and like Blazing Saddles is that Blazing Saddles took it and kept going and like turned it into a whole leg of the story. And that felt different to me than with Monty Python, because Monty Python chopped it off at the very end and they're like, haha, it's meta, look at us, we don't care. And it felt the same way with the Bandersnatch thing, because I felt like it ended the moment that you started talking to the therapist. It just kind of went, and then it ended really abruptly, which, like, yeah, it was an option. I wanted Stefan to understand, though, that I was talking to him through Netflix. I'm such a nerd. I got really attached to him. I was like, I want him to be okay.
I tried to explain it to him so much, and
me too.
And that's one of the things I really like about this flowchart is I didn't have to go play through the Netflix storyline again to know that there was, as soon as you said Netflix, there was no other ending.
Yeah,
well, I mean, there was another ending. There was the ending where it's the Netflix, hey, stop, what's going on? And then there's the one where his dad subdues him, which I did not get because I did not replay through the Netflix storyline.
Yeah, I didn't want to at that point. I was like, okay, that's what's going to happen when I choose Netflix. Let's move on. Which was honestly kind of disappointing to me. I don't know what I would have had them do differently. I can't really like say that or speak for myself in that manner. I just feel like, but it's the same thing when I play video games, is I want to be friends with the character. And I felt like if I had the chance to like explain myself to Stefan and then just let him go his own way, and like maybe I'll write a fan fiction, who knows, where like you keep making the decisions for him, but there's a mutual understanding between the two of you that you're not going to hurt him and it's less scary for him, you know, that kind of thing. But again, that's what fan fiction's for, right?
That was actually my favorite thing about, which ending was it? The Glyph ending.
Was when he started talking to you after you made the decisions.
Yeah. You kill Dad and he's like, well, what do I do? And he just sits there, and for the rest of the game, it's like every major decision, he just like looks up at the sky and is like, so what are we going to do?
What's your plan? Yeah, I loved it when you... the moment like my heart broke for him was when after you killed Dad and he asked what you wanted him to do, and you were like, bury the body, and he just goes, okay. Like my heart dropped. I was like, this poor boy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Even if they only had a third option in one spot, that would have been the perfect spot to put it.
Oh my God, yeah. If you just
like, what do you want me to do? And then you just don't answer.
It's like you got him to this point, and now you're making him deal with the consequences of something that wasn't even his own actions.
I wasn't thinking about the missed opportunities until just now. Oh my gosh. That would have been amazing.
It would have. That, and like the thing about like when he started talking to us as the viewers was like, with a lot of Black Mirror, you start kind of examining what the character is actually going through. Like, is he going to start making bad decisions and then like ascribing that to us and being like, oh, this isn't my fault, I'm not in control? Like, because that's something that that like a lot of people who are in situations that they don't like will start ascribing blame to anyone, just so long as it's not their fault that they're in this bad position. And it's like, from an even more meta perspective, like, is Stefan just doing that? Like, is he making these is he actually crazy and he's just making us up and going through these motions and then being like, oh, I'm not in control, so that he doesn't have to feel guilt for it.
Yeah.
There's so many.
It's one of the things where obviously budgets exist and this movie had to have an ending. But there are a couple of neat little ideas like that it would have been really neat just to explore a little bit more.
Yes, just a little. But yeah, and that's the thing is like, and now I'm going to bring up Until Dawn, because this is what I was kind of thinking.
Awesome, yeah.
And other games that have, specifically video games, because I feel like this episode really bridges that weird little gap between video game and like and movie, is like everyone always 100% of the time criticizes games where you make choices, Telltale games, Until Dawn, and like for not having enough choices that matter. And I'm like, what do you think we're capable of as humans here? This isn't real life. To an extent, this is a simulation, and we will never be able to simulate real life. It's why I can't play video games like for that long of a time, like RPGs, where I'm interacting with fake characters is because I start to get really bored because it gets predictable. Everything gets predictable at some point. And to criticize a video game or a movie for not having enough choices just feels like you're overestimating what the creator was capable of at all, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's just that's one of the criticisms that like I can't really stand behind as much, because it's not like they did a way better job than Telltale ever did, right? With your choices leading to branching endings. They did a better job than Until Dawn, because Until Dawn just dictates how many people are alive at the same ending.
Yeah, you have essentially two endings.
Oh, spoiler alert! But I think they made that pretty clear.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, it's been out for over a year, hasn't it?
I feel like this is one of the best examples I've ever seen of having multiple choices that affect your storyline in a visual medium that's like not a choose your own adventure book. But people will always criticize stuff like that for not having enough endings.
Oh, most certainly. And speaking of endings,
there's a certain
I have two endings
validity to that criticism, but you're going. It keeps cutting out for me.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, here, let me check my mic cords real quick just to make sure they're all.
It's probably Discord, let's be honest.
Yeah, realistically. Okay, so speaking of endings, though, I have two endings that I greatly enjoyed.
Oh, tell me.
So one is the perfect game 5-star ending that ends up transitioning into Colin's kid.
Yes.
I liked that ending a lot. I wish that her ending had a different ending than destroying the computer. Even if it was just like a fade to black ending type of thing, I would have appreciated that.
Ooh, what's going to happen with this? Because that was kind of what they were going for, was like it's rumored to be happening on Netflix, right? Because it would be like, and you're playing that game right now, kind of thing.
Exactly. I think it would have been really neat to just like to have that pop in like that, because it was a cool thing.
Yeah. And they implied it, but it would have been neat to just let it go.
Yeah. But the one that I would argue is the good ending.
Yes.
Is you go to the dad's safe and you enter toy. Now you go back in time, you have the toy, you put the toy under the bed, and that storyline specifically, not the one where so you can't only go with her this way. You then go with your mom on the train.
And you die.
And then you die. I would argue that is the good ending.
Yeah.
Because everything else, no matter what happens, the end just happens. You know, like it's the end. There is no real conclusion to it. You're just like, okay, Stefan, no matter what happens, is unhappy. But this one, because the only way to get there is, you put him through all kinds of hell all through this episode to get the toy password, you know? And by the time you finally get there, I think letting him just be done is the best ending.
See, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, because it also it's the only ending where he gets to address his trauma. All the other ones just kind of go off the rails, and it never finishes Stefan's character arc where he addresses his trauma and his disagreement with his dad and how all of that went down. And like there's so much in the story that points towards that conclusion being the best for Stefan in a lot of ways. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that. Like I hadn't thought of it at all, but I'm
trying to remember what ending I got that like the episode ended for me, because I did get a forced ending and I can't remember which ending that ended up being. Thinking of it, it might have been that ending.
Yeah.
And that might be why I think this. But whatever ending I got, I did end up getting the nosedive code ending.
Did you? I didn't.
Oh, really? See, that I don't remember how I got it is the big issue now. I got it, and I thought it was going to loop me back, and then I started the credits. He pops in a tape, and I'm like, oh, dang, it took me all the way back to the beginning. And then this atrocious noise plays.
Right.
And that's
everyone was like, oh, that's so creepy. And like that was really, I love it when they do stuff like that. That's one of my favorite things is when there's little trails for you to follow. I did find the QR code online and get to it that way, but I never got the ending organically.
Oh, nice.
So
it's good to know that I can find it again online, though, so that I don't have to try and work through it and figure it out.
Yeah, no, people have posted it, thank God, because like I, as much as I love the game and I will probably replay it again later, it's one of those things where like I have to be in the right mood, you know, because it is heavy as hell.
No, yeah, I would agree with that.
All right. So you said you were going to play a little bit of Devil's Advocate. Are you going to spring that on me?
Here's my Devil's Advocate moment.
Okay.
There are, and the big complaint I got from people on my Facebook when I just posted, wow, Bandersnatch. I got a lot of people that didn't like it because they said they thought the movie treated them like they were stupid. So what they were like, because I would hazard a guess that they stopped playing after the accept offer, since yes, every single one of those decisions, it only is like an Easter egg effect later in the game, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it depends on what serial ad you get, what musical tone you have, and that's all it affects, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I would say that the people that didn't like it, I would say they did not get far enough into it, because there are a lot of moments where this game streamlines you real heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when you get to a reset point, one of my friends specifically said that he did not appreciate being forced down the narrative they wanted him to take. He wanted to be able to do other things. And I get that because, kind of sucks a little bit. However, there are plenty of, here I am flipping back on Devil's Advocate again. There are plenty of other moments that it does let you make those decisions.
Oh, yeah.
A criticism, though, would be it is... And I don't know that I dislike this, but it is rather difficult to find your way around some of these endings.
As far as like feeling like they were streamlining you, I will say that like there are two parts to that. First of all, when I did get sent back to the beginning after I made the accept choice, I did feel like that's what was happening, and I did get a little frustrated. After playing through the whole thing, I can tell you that it is a introduction to the idea that this is a meta narrative. You know,
of course,
that's what it is. But at the time, I was like, oh, so I guess you guys are just going to tell me what to do, right? Which I think might have been a mistake on the storyteller's part to introduce it in that way, because then whenever I was
with the
given
very on the nose wrong path from Colin,
exactly. But like then like whenever I got given the option to go back to a different spot, I felt like I was having that happen to me again. But that's the problem there, is that that's an assumption that I was making, because that's not what they were doing. They were giving me the opportunity to find a different ending. They weren't telling me that the ending I found was the wrong one. They were just like, no, you can get a different ending, and we're not going to make you go back to the beginning to find it. Right. But because of that first time that they forced me to go back, when they started giving me those things, I started on the assumption that I had made the wrong choice, right? And that they wanted me to make the right choice. But by the time that I got to like the third ending I had gotten to, I realized that wasn't what was happening. But it goes to show you that like you were saying, if people like left, even after they got one ending, or maybe after they got a couple, they could still feel that like, oh, they were forcing me to make a certain decision kind of feeling. So I can sympathize with that.
Which I won't say it was a bad choice from the writers, because I mean, I couldn't have written this, so I don't want to give
me neither.
too heavy criticism in that kind of a way.
Yeah.
But I think it would be fair to say I do see the moments where they messed up and they could have made something slightly better. Like a streamlined aspect like that so early in the movie. It definitely did hurt the ability of the whole thing to capture an audience.
Yeah, exactly. It did feel like, but the other thing is like, I feel like if people have watched enough Black Mirror, then they would. There's two responses to having watched a lot of Black Mirror and then playing Bandersnatch. The first one is, I kind of know they're not going to treat me like I'm stupid because they never have before, right? And then there's the reaction of Black Mirror always treats me like they're so smart and I'm so stupid. And this is just an extension of that, which I know some people don't like Black Mirror because they feel like it's kind of uppity in their like, ooh, technology bad kind of narrative.
I do love that narrative, though. It
I'm a big
amuses me
fan.
greatly because
Not to mention they're never like really that up their own ass about it. It feels like they know that that's their gimmick, you know?
Mm-hmm. I hate it when people in like real life do it, but when Bandersnatch, when Black Mirror does it, that's okay. Because Black
Well, not to
Mirror
mention
isn't
they're
also 80 years old telling me that cell phones are ruining the country.
yeah, and it's never like one of the best examples of that, I think, because everyone loves this episode anyway, is Nosedive. Because it has a very critical aspect of something that like everyone who watches Black Mirror uses, right? It's social media. But it also has one of the most bittersweet endings to any of the episodes on the show, which like
Now I do need to have you remind me which episode Nosedive is. Is it because it's from one of the early episodes, right?
it's from the like second season, I think.
Okay, yeah. That is that the one where they rate each other on social media?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Such a good episode.
I love it so much because it's like, it's not saying technology bad. It's saying be careful how you use it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a lot of Black Mirror, and people who are seeing just the technology bad kind of thing, kind of view the whole series as I'm 14 and this is deep, you know? Like,
oof.
it's something
wrong.
that they're like, oh, this is not actually saying anything important. It's just, but like, you know, I can see that, and I can see why Bandersnatch would like kind of expand on that kind of feeling of being talked down to by someone who's just like technology bad, because there's a lot, especially the scene where they're on drugs and they're having their little philosophical rant, which is something that a lot of writers do, is they'll put their characters on drugs and then they'll have a philosophical rant through their characters that are on drugs, and then they'll be like, oh, it's they're on drugs so they aren't serious, but I, the writer, totally was. Oh my god, I completely lost where I was going with this. I can see why viewing that and already thinking like, oh, Black Mirror is talking down to me, why you would see that scene and be like, this is just more of the same shit. And now on top of that, they're going to make me make some choices, and then they're going to pull the end and be like, haha, the illusion of choice, free will is a lie, and just that'll be it. So I guess what I'm saying is I see where a lot of people with these criticisms are coming from, and I can totally respect someone for not liking it, but I feel like they're taking it too seriously, maybe, if they get really angry about that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's just a good show. It's a good episode of a good show.
Mm-hmm.
And it I think a lot of people, the one other thing that I wanted to say was like, a lot of people are talking about whether or not they can call it a game or a TV show.
I hate that. It's like, come on, people, calm down. It's not that deep.
Yeah.
When the real TV show is the friends we made along the way, how are we supposed to call it a game? Checkmate, atheists.
Checkmate, atheists. How do you feel about the way that they let you make the choices, like by having it run for so long in the background while you were doing it?
How do you mean?
Well, some people were like, oh, it just broke the pacing for me. Like it felt really stilted to have them like have Stefan taking so long to make the choices when you were making them yourself.
Oh, some of it bugged me, in the sense of I made choices much faster than Stefan did, and I'm aware of that.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
But I also was very aware of the fact that there was no way I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
So I just kind of accepted it.
Yeah. That's kind of how I felt too. The other thing is like in video games where they do that, specifically like Telltale, where they give you a little timer or whatever. Usually it'll just cut off the background dialogue and like force your choice right then and there, right when you make the decision. And I feel like for a TV show that would not have worked as well. So I think that letting the timer run out and letting Stefan kind of deliberate longer after you make the decision made sense. But it did feel a little weird at first.
Yeah. And weird at first is something I can live with, because
Yeah, honestly.
after it went on for a little bit, it wasn't so much the oh, I can't believe he's taking so long, why can't he just finish type of feeling I initially had. And it started to fall much more in line with I don't want to say what I expected, but like I felt like it gave the choices more gravity.
Yes. Yeah. Well, especially like when there were choices that I actually had time that I needed to be able to pick, like between like killing dad and not killing dad. There were a couple where I came pretty close to the timer running out because I was like, I really don't want to kill dad here.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right.
It's just, it's just good. I really I didn't really know whether or not I wanted to play through it at first because I knew it was going to take a lot of time, but it was a really unique experience, and I hope that it like paves the way for more stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Something that maybe isn't quite as metatextual, because the thing about doing a free like a choose your own adventure where the focus is a choose your own adventure book and game is that it actually it limits itself a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot you can do with choose your own adventure that's not a meta criticism. So I'm hoping that we get more that are actually just as they appear, choose your own adventure stories where there isn't that extra layer to it. Because I'd like to have a fantasy movie like choose your own adventure thing. That'd be pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It takes a lot of work.
It makes me wonder. Go ahead.
What? No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It makes me wonder if this is because I don't want Black Mirror to do this format again.
No, me neither.
Because as soon as they do it a second time, it becomes a gimmick, and that will be, it's just what Black Mirror does. Even though they have years and years of content showing that's not just what Black Mirror does. Because this was popular Black Mirror, this will be new Black Mirror if they ever do it again.
Yeah.
But I am curious to see if anyone else tries to pick up this format.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they will, because I think everyone will think of it as what it is. It's a gimmick, It
is. It is.
Gimmicks are not inherently bad, so I don't mind that. But I do wonder if I'm going to see anyone else pick it up, because one of the things that I did not know, but apparently is a thing, is Netflix has done this before for like kids shows.
Oh.
And there are like kids shows with choose your own adventure elements, which personally I think is a great idea. All I can think of is watching Dora as a kid saying, "Oh my
God, being able to actually click on it."
Exactly. Just so nice. Minor interactions that would be actually really neat. That's a good show that you could have for like developmental stages,
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah.
Then
Black
the kids
Mirror,
aren't just yelling at a screen.
With its weird technology again, makes me think, how neat would it be to have that kind of stuff happen,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
See what they do.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is there are a couple socio-political things that people are pointing out with Bandersnatch. The first being data mining through your choices and the choices you make in a choose your own adventure on Netflix. What can be told about your personality and your buying decisions through which choices you make first.
Don't like that.
Yeah. As someone who is now graduated and has a marketing degree, I can say, oof, real hard there. Big yikes to that.
I get the idea, but I don't want to know what people find out about me based on the intentionally sociopathic decisions I made in a video.
Exactly. Like, ooh, what does that tell you about me? Also, are they going to start adding that to background checks? Like,
so we noticed when you watched Bandersnatch, you chopped up your father. Well, it really wasn't an option not to kill my father, you see. Yes, but you did choose to chop him up. We don't know if you'll be a good fit here. Exactly.
Like, you chose it first. You didn't try not to. You just went for it. Like,
got a chance to kill this guy? Boom, dead.
Dead man. Yeah, so there's that. That's a big one where I'm like, there's already enough problems with like your personal information that there's something like actually kind of really intimate about knowing what decisions I would make under pressure. Being able to like, if they made enough of these choose your own adventure things, like they'd be able to tell something really interesting about your personality. But I don't think that'll happen for a while.
No.
Because it takes so much time to make these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one. And then the other one is, did you know Choose Your Own Adventure is a copyrighted freaking term?
Are you serious?
Yeah, the Choose Your Own Adventure books are a copyrighted series. So Netflix is in trouble for using it.
That makes me so happy.
It's killing me.
For no real reason. It just amuses me to death.
I'm a little upset because I'm like, oh no, I hope they don't like have to do anything to Bandersnatch to be able to like keep it going, because that's just really funny to me though, that they did they not look into it? Did they think it was just kind of like Kleenex, like a general term? I feel like it is.
Kleenex is not a general term though. It is.
Well, no, it's a brand name. Exactly. Like, did they screw up like a lot of like people would? And I wonder, like, I don't know a thing about intellectual property law, so I don't know like what's wrong with using it or where they used it that like went over the edge, because I feel like referencing it wouldn't have been that bad of a thing, but they did kind of brand themselves as a choose your own adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yikes. But that's really freaking funny to me.
Oh, most certainly.
So I think that's the most I've heard. Like, that's the biggest thing that I've heard against Bandersnatch, apart from all the obvious little criticisms of the narrative, is that like, oh gosh, they didn't even look into this. But overall, I feel like it's one of the best things. I guess that's 2018, right? One of the best things in my 2018 was Bandersnatch. I really enjoyed it.
You know, I'll agree with that. It was I don't think I watched it until 2019.
I didn't either, but it came out in 2018, so I feel kind of
yeah, it was a strong end of the year.
Yeah.
As far as just like new ideas go, can't complain.
Yeah. Well, it's like that and Into the Spider-Verse like really cinched my 2018 really solidly in things that like were really different and really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Into the Spider-Verse deserves its very own episode. And I won't talk about it without Dan here, because I know he would be very sad if we did that, because he and I went to see it together, and oh boy, was that a fantastic movie.
It was my favorite movie of the year last year. I'm going to go see it again today. I'm really excited. I love it so much.
Must be nice to get to see it again.
Well, I have a lot of siblings, you see, so I have an excuse. I already took both my sisters to see it, and then I'm taking my brother today. Means I only have to pay for my ticket, and I also don't have to go see it alone, which is nice.
A little jealous, but I understand.
Why can't you go see it again? Just too broke?
I definitely can. The nearest theater is like an hour away, and I just don't feel like making that drive right now, because spoiler alert to listeners, it is winter here, and I don't know, Nina, if you're very familiar with winter in northeastern Pennsylvania.
I'm not.
But it blows. I'm
so sorry. It's really nice here, and beautiful sunny Washington. Nice. It's glorious. It's like 55 degrees and sunny. What happened, Washington? Where is the snow? I'm a little bitter, but I'm also glad that I can drive to the store if I want to.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
But yeah, no, also the nearest theater is just 5 minutes from me, so.
Okay. Yeah, if a theater was that close to me, I'd definitely be there.
Yeah, it's close. It has reserved seats. It's so I don't have to leave half an hour before the movie to be able to sit somewhere I want to. Overall, just perfect. So I guess it just sucks to be you.
I'm used to it. It's fine.
Oh no, that's kind of sad.
Wait, let me channel my inner Dan real quick.
Okay.
Everything is awful.
Is that your, that was that's good, Dan. Oh my
Hear
god.
that, Dan? Calling you out. Be happier.
Dan, lighten up.
You're allowed to be
this has been
happy.
you're allowed to be. Jackson too. This is also for Jackson. Everyone can be happy. I command it. This is your New Year's resolution mandated by me. Be happier. You're welcome.
Yeah. With that, everyone else, you guys be happy too. Thanks for listening to the special bonus episode. Hope you had fun with it. Watch Bandersnatch.
Do it.
Definitely
I
worth
hope
it.
you have already.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Yeah, you're right.
we basically just killed it for you. Sorry.
I think we killed it with vague enough details, though, that you could still watch it again and get a lot out of the dialogue because, I mean, we didn't say anything about dialogue.
No, we didn't.
We didn't even touch on the LSD scene. So
damn it, we didn't. Oh, man.
which
Fuck.
I'm going to keep it at that because we're far enough into this.
There's just let it be said that there's a lot more to it and there's a lot to be said about it. So there you go.
Yeah. Check it out, everybody.
Check it out.
Nina, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Nina Wolverina. And yeah, basically anywhere that you can find people, you can find me under that username. I do art and stuff, and I also frequently rant about, stuff that I like this. So yeah. You
can find me at Bubbadabad, Bubbadabad. I am on all forms of social media like that. I mean, you guys can see the spelling. I have it up on the video screen if you guys are watching that one. Links in the description for all our stuff. Twitch, especially. Please follow me on Twitch. Love that following because I enjoy playing games a lot more when I get to talk to people. So, yeah. See you guys next time.
Yeah, I won't. Have fun.